Hey, love, before we jump in, I want to make you aware that Tools of Transformation is open as of now, and it holds all the exercises that I wish I would have known when starting on my spiritual journey, even before, because would I have known how much it helps my daily life to reset my nervous system, to release stress, release anger, to energetically make conversations go my way before I even have them, or what mirror work can do, my life would have been shifted. So I really invite you to check that out. Link is in the captions below. And now we jump straight into the episode to have another wonderful conversation about how to get to this point of empowerment, how other women did it, what tools they used, what perspective shifts they found for themselves, how they navigated their life to come back to their empowerment. Enjoy the episode. Loves, welcome to another episode of About Her. I have the wonderful Martina with me, and I am especially excited for today because we have bonded over the last month so wonderfully, and it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me.
I'm excited. We haven't planned anything out for this episode, but that's like how I like it. So we see what comes up. And I would love to start by asking you to share a little bit about you, whatever you feel comfortable to share about you and the wonderful project that you're doing right now. So whatever comes up, would love to start with that.
Okay, I think I come to conclusion that I'm a multidimensional being because I find so many things very exciting. And last year I had a moment where I was like, okay, I need to move and I don't want to move. I want to move this one time. So I was like, okay, I'm giving it that one shot because I've moved pretty much all my life since ever I moved out from home, like every 3 months to 1.5 years.
Wow.
So I moved a lot, and it's probably an understatement for many people. And so I was like, okay, what do I want for a home? And I stated all the things I want, and my brain went like, I have no idea how you'll ever get a place that has like spaciousness, that has a lot of light, that you live in the top floor, you have oak wooden floor, you have a big open kitchen. Now I have 2 kitchens. I'm like, okay, I have no idea how this is going to work out, but I just connected with that vision. And then this house came to me where I'm living in now. And as soon as I entered the home here, I was like, okay, this is a healing space. People will come and retreat. Like, we will host ceremonies, we will have workshop rooms. And I was like, where does this even come from? But it was really exciting. And so I shared that with the owner of the house, and she was like, you're the person I've been looking for.
Oh my God.
And so I've been also working as a medium, as a channel pretty much all my life without even knowing. Like, I've guided a lot of people throughout my entire lifetime without at the time then knowing what I actually was doing because it was so natural to me. And even now, the people who come into space, whether it's Airbnb or not, they experience some sort of a transformation in this space or around me or whatever. And I'm learning just now on a deeper level that I'm really here to hold space for deep inner transformations. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love so much what you said about doing the support and holding space work without being conscious of it, because I think that's something that many of us do without having an idea. And the thing is, like, I feel personally, it's really hard to shift out into a kind of zoomed out version, just like, that's actually like a really important work that I'm doing because it's so natural. So sometimes I feel like we have blinders on with these gifts that we have since like whatever childhood, and we don't even are able to value them until a certain point and see like the transformation and see like the support that we have given other people because it wasn't a conscious choice. It's just quote unquote who you are, which does not in any way lessen the transformation, but I think like the transformation, it needs to like become aware of that yourself, of like the magic that you hold and have ever hold throughout your whole lifetime like the switch to say like, oh, okay, well, that's actually what I'm here for. That's actually also what I can do as a job. That's like a complete, I feel, shift of perspectives around yourself. And I think that's really interesting because it's like an inner rebirthing of something that has always been there. I think it's a wonderful gift to become aware of your own gifts. That's what I'm trying to to come down to. And I think it's so fascinating.
It really is, because for me, when I meet people, I instantly can tell what you're good at. Like I read something you say, or I pick up on something. I'm like, wow, like this is amazing. I obviously see the other things too if I take my time to look. But I mean, then I look at myself, and I just had that talk with someone yesterday again. She's like, do you ever wonder who you truly are? And whenever I go through a big breakthrough or another revelation, I'm like, I have no idea who the heck I am. Like, what? So it's, for me, it's been a really big challenge to start seeing myself in that light, or to say, okay, that I do hold powerful spaces or whatnot, because yeah, the easy I see it on the others, for me, it was really hard to see it on myself.
I feel that's something that kind of like maybe a joke from the universe that happens, that we are so able to have like this crystal clear thing for others, and then for ourselves it's like we're running around with the
With
blinders.
the post-it on the forehead.
I
And if
have
you
no
really
idea
look
what to do.
close enough, you could actually read it.
But for everyone else, it's like, yeah, of course that's that. And what it did to me was, and I'm interested just to hear how you navigated that, how you held yourself through it. For me, I've struggled a lot with stepping into my power, and I think I've only tiptoed in by now. But that was a lot of work because I always thought like, I can't do it for myself, so how can I help others with it? But it's actually not that way. I feel sometimes our wounds are actually like the Chiron thing, you know, our wounds are the place of opportunity for the greatest support to others. But shifting that internally, not logically, but like on a body level, how did you do that?
Well, sometimes I still move through shifting through it, to be quite honest. It's been interesting this year, especially because since I'm in this house, everyone calls me a CEO. I would never say that, but now I do, kind of, because on some levels, I obviously embody that frequency, because it happened just yesterday again. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess the universe is trying to hint me something.
Maybe.
But for me, it's really when becoming aware and stop judging myself for it needing to be any different, or trying to be ahead of the game, or whatever that means, and coming back to the present moment and really look what is available to me now. What have I grown through? What have I worked through? Like, for example, this week we celebrated my daughter's 12th, third birthday, like very ahead in time right now. That'd be interesting to say the least, but she turned 3 and her father was here, and her parts of family. From my family, no one showed up, which was also very interesting because for me, my Chiron is in Cancer in the 4th house, so all around family, also in the 8th house of Scorpio, so all around power. But anyway, so we were sitting there and we had such a beautiful time, like it was relaxed, that we were able to talk easily to each other. And that was the result of 3 years continuous work through my own shadows, because this man triggered me in my deepest fears. And I feel like it's the same thing when you start to see who you really are. You need to face your fears. You need to face your own shadows to integrate that, but also not make your light smaller than it truly is. Like, it's kind of circling back to your question, because I was really good at reflecting and integrating my shadows, but then really owning my light is a different story, because that also means to be like seen, visible, like we talked before we actually hopped on live, and to show up and say, I am actually the CEO of this project in this house. I am embodying this frequency because the house is obviously still here and I am also still here. Being like, yes, I actually did create that. No one else did that for me. And so looking to the things that you've actually created on your own, because a lot of times I feel like so many people come and say, wow, Anna, you're so amazing at light language. This is your thing to do. And you're like, I'm not so sure. Yeah, I know I can do it, but is it really for everyone? Until you get to the point that it channels through you and they're like, yes, this is me. This is part of what I'm doing. This is part of what I'm embodying. But until you reach that point of embodying it and knowing it from within, then I think that's where it fully lands.
Yeah, I totally agree on that.
I feel like I was like everywhere.
I totally get that. I thought about the multidimensional being that we started with all these like different talents and passions and intuitive hits that we have. For me, it sometimes feel like, or most of the time, I feel like a kid in a candy shop. I'm like this or that or this or that. And then like what you just said, the anchoring in, the real embodying, the integrating on a cellular level, not just quote unquote on a soul level, because there it's already there, but like the slowness of the body to let it sink in there. That's something that really, for me at least, takes a lot of time, a lot of work. And until it's done, it's always this like, oh no, yeah, it's nice, but I can't fully show up with it because it would feel out of integrity. And interestingly, you picked the light language where I have the exact thing. Yes.
I didn't know.
But of course you knew. And so what you said about like the shadow, that is something that I'm collectively witnessing, that we are maybe at stage one, we're not even looking at the shadow. But then when we awaken slowly, we look deeply into the shadows and totally forget that for every shadow, there is light. And you can't have the light without the shadow, but also it's not just shadow. So I think like this whole shadow work thing, it's beautiful in the like spiritual community that we kind of flow in. But on the other hand, it's only half of the piece. And owning our light and actually saying, yes, okay, I'm doing my shadow work. And it's kind of like maybe nitty gritty, uncomfortable process. But at the same time, that means I hold equally the light of the shadow that I'm discovering. For me, that was a big aha, because sometimes we fall into this like, oh, there is only shadow. Ooh. And then, like you say, you get reflected by the universe like, oh, you're actually good at what you do. People are actually inspired. You actually hold so much light or are already like a beacon of light to others, but you haven't even realized because you were so busy with your shadow work, not seeing that there is the other side of the coin too, and that your light is so big. So that's something that really helped me a lot to say, like, just because I've been through a lot or I have a big shadow, it's not meaning that I can't hold a lot of light, but the opposite. It means that I have a lot of light to reveal for me. And that was one of these embodying moments. I thought, okay, well, wonderful. Things now make much more sense, and it gives back the ownership of the worthiness of the work.
It also, I feel like over time, because you can really go down the rabbit hole with doing shadow work, and it also will be never ever ending because there's always another stone to turn and everything. So what I've been trying or learning is also bringing my focus much more to the light, because the shadows will pop up regardless. You cannot skip it anyway, but if you focus on that light, at least you see yourself also in a way that is like meaningful, impactful, worthy, everything. And every time you go through the next growth level, you face your shadow anyway, because it's gonna come up regardless. And the more you speed up and the more you progress, the shadows are gonna be equally like in your face.
That's something that I feel a lot of people kind of have this fairy tale wishful thinking to say like, oh, if I go on the path towards enlightenment, then, all my problems will vanish. When it's the exact opposite. You reveal light and the exact amount of shadow comes to say like, hi. So the Kabbalists, I love studying Kabbalah lately. They always say like, your devil grows. Don't particularly like the way they say it, but the the message is like your devil grows with the light you reveal. And I found that to be very true for everyone I've ever come across, that and it's not a bad thing. It's actually just another opportunity to reveal more of your light. If the shadow comes up and then you reveal more of the light and then the next shadow comes up. So yes, it's never ending, but no, it's not a bad thing. And maybe it's about letting go of the judgment of what is good or bad and that only light is good and the shadow is bad, but like going into neutrality of the divinity itself to say it's just there for you to, then we're again back circling to get to know yourself better.
And to grow. And it's like a spiral. You keep going up and up and up. And I've lived with many people who are on the spiritual path, like in many different ways. And on the outside, when you would look at them on social media, you'd always think, holy shit, they have the most epic, amazing life whatsoever, like to the bits. And then you see them go through hell of transformation on the back end of things, like I feel for me that was very important to see, because I've learned, or I've been picking up on, or whatever, in the way I was growing up, I'd always need to be the strong one. I need to be the one who is always laughing, whatever, like all those things. So that for me was safe to show. But then I've learned that when I'm able to show my vulnerable side as well, like it's much more magnetic, and to show that there is actually a huge transformation behind it to where I stand now or whatever. Even even with the like whole family situation, because that was hell of a journey.
I can imagine.
I was just sharing yesterday with that friend I was on the road, that after we had broken up and my daughter just arrived, like there were moments where he was like in my face like this and say, are you afraid, and stuff like that. And I was afraid, but I was like, no, I'm not afraid. And I was so afraid because of the karmic relationship we shared and all of that. And like knowing that we can now sit next to each other and celebrate my daughter's birthday in a peaceful and relaxed way, like, and things don't trigger me by far as much as they used to. It's, to me, that's win-win-win.
That's actually a miracle that you've manifested together. And I have full body chills while you talked about it, because you could have also chosen to not go there, to not heal that. It's always a possibility to not heal. Maybe not for you, like, but generally speaking, it's always a possibility to go into victim mode or go into like the comfortability of the known state. And what you said, like, is this, are you afraid? Do you feel fear? Yes, but you do it anyways, because that's how we grow. And I feel societally we have been conditioned to shrink back from fear really fast, because like, oh, there's fear, don't go there. That's a sign for not going there. Whether I think right now, from the awareness level I am right now, I think that's the exact way to go.
Yes.
Not the fear to jump to that you have when you're on a 20-story building and looking down, and it's not about jumping down. No, that's not the fear I mean. But
you're into base jumping, go for it.
As you see, that's not the thing that I would do. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's like this fear is one of the biggest signs for us to grow. It's kind of like, oh, there's something to learn for you. There's the next level, so to speak. And even in the video game analogy, there's always like the big opponent before you go to the next level. So there is always a fear of failure or death or whatever you might fear. And that's always the place to go so that we can grow. So I think it's very brave to go lean into your own fear, but at the same time, it's also deconditioning from a societal paradigm that we have been raised with, and a lot of generations before too. So it's kind of like a really big structure that we are evolving out of, so to say.
Yes, and it's interesting what I'm observing a lot, because I mean, we have a lot of separated parents in so many ways. And I mean, my parents were divorced too, divorced when I was really young. And what I'm observing or noticing in that is that both are equally hurt, that they forget that there was once love. And then they especially for women, I noticed they have such a fear of speaking up, standing their ground, even though their man never touched them in any way, like in any bad way. But that fear is so ingrained that if they start to step up and he gets mad, that something is going to happen to them that is unreversible. And that is so sad. And men have a similar fear, but just on the, they are so afraid of rejection, probably from the female love, that if they have a mother's wound in any way, like it's gonna show up. And that's like what we've journeyed through as well, because I've had my father wound, he had his mother wound, and noticing that if he gets loud or angry, it's actually his fear of not being enough, or is his fear, and then not being sucked in, but standing the ground that is needed, not for or against him. I feel that's very important, because underneath it is always love. And the funny thing is, when you can open your heart even to that person you're saying no to walk the journey with, everything can change. I don't even know why I went there, but it feels important, because I feel like in our society, we need to move back to a place of love and knowing that whatever our choice is for us. Like, my nervous system could not settle in that relationship, it just couldn't. So I, creating space for me, I allowed myself to start feeling safe in my own body and had nothing to do with him as a human being.
That's a separation that I feel is often missed, as so often in society. I feel we're touching base and focusing on one little tiny part, but forgetting the rest. So it often, maybe most often, has nothing to do with the other one, but is a reflection of each other's wound. Like, how I love the morphogenetic field theory. I think that's really a nice way to explain a lot of things. So things that come up are, it's not the visual that you see that is the actual thing, is what lays behind, maybe from generations, or like what you just described. I'm not the most emotional person, but I've had tears in my eyes, because you initially described like my relationship with every man I've ever had, this like fear of speaking up, regardless of how close the person was. It was never the person. Even now with my husband, for me, it's much easier to share with a woman about my deepest insides than with my own husband. But not because he did something wrong, just because of this like wound of, if someone gets louder, it means rejection. For me too. My parents divorced when I was not even 2. It's a big wound of things will fall apart, and the male energy leaves the moment something is uncomfortable, or the moment there is anger. That's always like, okay, world is going to break apart. So what did I learn? Don't create any situation where there could be any disharmony or anger. And I've run that program for more than 30 years now. And to come out of that, it's so hard. And at the same time, it's so freeing. But what I want to come down to, what you've already touched on, is like, it has nothing to do with the actual person. So every person I was ever in a relationship or friendship with, or even my father, it had nothing to do with the person. It's the energy. It's what pops up, all the tabs that open when you go into this energy, when you lean into the fear. And then I think it's a wonderful way of the universe to like kind of give us opportunities through all these people that we've met that kind of like unconsciously touch on our wounds. So like, hey, do you want to heal it? Okay, you didn't. Then here's another one. like one of these people who want to like really deeply sell something to you. For me, it feels like this energy of like, don't you want to look at it? It's like person 30 that I've given you for that wound. Maybe it's it's time. And then we often turn away because, oh, that's uncomfortable. And yes, it is.
It is fucking uncomfortable. Like, I've never experienced hatred towards a person as deeply as I did in that relationship. Like, I don't know what dragon was awakened there, but it was fucking painful. My God, like, never, literally, I could have spit in that person's face, like, do nasty things I never thought of myself being capable of, even though I knew it deep down. But it really brought up the probably most darkest, worst sensations in my body ever. So I could also see all the other things, like, oh my goodness.
Isn't it hard to like experience what you're capable of feeling, at least not doing,
Yes.
but feeling like this uncomfortability of the deep shadow feelings, which also means that you have a lot of light feelings. So it's kind of the intensity on both sides, but
Yeah, but it's interesting because then, especially when it comes to parents who are divorcing, they're so used to only allow the negative to be at the forefront because it's so painful to admit that you also have a deep appreciation and love for that person, because then you need to open your heart again and like look at like the whole spectrum of what is there. And then what happens a lot of times, women take the children away from the dad because now he's the bad guy, he can take care of the children, he's the abuser, whatever. Like, and it's really hard because he in his core, I mean, some people have to move through that stage where they have to let go of being the abuser. So there are definitely constellations where it is not safe, but I feel a lot of time our own fears make things much bigger than they are actually. They
yeah.
like, not to diminish it in any way, but they make it so much larger than to look and deal with those sensations. Okay, there is the fear of what potentially could happen, and allowing that to transform internally, because it will transform for the entire collective, family collective.
Yes.
Does this make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I thought like it's crazy because it's not the obvious thing you look at, but if you look at it, and again to not kind of devalue any emotions anyone has, but we often, or I've observed often, that within this like separation phase, there is a demonization of the other one instead of like what you said, opening your heart and say like, it's so uncomfortable to go there, but we also had beautiful moments. That's why we initially like kind of decided to be in a relationship. But like to go there, it's so much easier to just close yourself off and go into the hatred, and that person is the most bad person ever. But what we're doing to ourselves, like kind of the energy of resentment or frustration or anger that we are throwing, not at the other person, but actually that we are throwing at ourselves in that moment. And also what it's doing to the children. The other way would be like, the more healing, loving way. But often I feel it's hard for us to go there because what I've heard a lot of times from clients is like, I'm not able to withstand that, or I'm not able to hold that feeling. So it's like kind of we are so afraid that we're not able to go through that we'd rather close it off and say like, okay, well, let's not just even look at it, like kind of building a fort around your heart, and then say like, okay, and then that must mean that the other one's the bad one, that the other one's the demon, and so
And it
I'm
happens
fine.
from both sides. Like, it's not just the man towards the woman towards the man, men too. And
Yeah.
then sometimes, because when you are caught up in that pattern, you behave like an asshole. I'm sorry to say, but you like you cross boundaries, and both ways. Like, you cross the boundaries of the other person, you step on everything you possibly can to just show how fucking hurt you were. And then there is the moment you're like, fuck, you're having an issue with parenting, and he's kind of the only person to open up to and be vulnerable with, and it's like, oh my goodness, just want it to be right. Like, I don't want to like expose my heart again because you don't want to go through the hurt feelings again. It's like, but it's the best learning curve ever.
Yes, it's again like the universe giving you an opportunity to go into your heart, to heal that
Yeah.
wounded part. And like I think we humans, like the humanness in us says, no, I want to be in control. I want to do it my way. No, I want to be safe. Not realizing that this is like the ultimate path to feeling safe,
Really is.
to going into our own power. But in that very moment, oh, it's just
Like,
so interesting because we're witnessing this real time, unfortunately, in our family, where one of my husband's brothers is divorcing, and they're not nice to each other. And the thing that's like making me cry is how the children are suffering with this, and the picture that they take on of their parents and of life through this process of a not so harmonious separation. And we're both Charles with divorced parents, so I think we can both could imagine what that does to a child. And that for me, it's like, even though I know they need to go through the process and they need to find their own ways of dealing with it, to see the children kind of reflect this level of drama and hatred and closing of their hearts in that young, early age. Yeah, my ideal version of self would love to have us evolve collectively fast enough so that things like this don't happen in that intensity. But then again, on another level, it's part of their soul's journey. So it's all fine, but sometimes witnessing this from the outside is hard. And that doesn't even have to be like with children. It can be a separation of an adult couple as well, or a separation from you to you. We're witnessing the same thing inside that we do outside, so it doesn't matter. But generally, the love that you've touched on before, if there's hatred, there's also the equal amount of love. So what do you want to focus on with yourself, with the partner?
Yes, absolutely. But I feel like it's vital that you experience the other, that like it's like you're experiencing the shadow, so you can experience the light. Because in my head, I had the hardest time to wrap my head around that our paths just don't align. And at the same time, I have the capacity to hold such big emotions. And it sounds so strange because I've learned just on my path for how I want to be happy in a relationship. Love alone is not enough. Like I can love any person, really, but to choose to walk the path of life together, for me, love alone is not enough. You need to have similar values. You need to have, at least for me, I want to share, and I know this person is coming in now, but to realize that and knowing that it was a very chaotic, somehow chaotic process. And I feel like you need to go through certain emotions to create a certain distance on a human level, so you can come back on the others, on the
Yes, I love that very much.
like you can. I could have, in the first year after separation, when my daughter was born, we were fighting a lot. And yes, for my daughter, I did not wish that, you know? So, but then it's a fine line between being really hard on yourself and beating yourself up over all the things you're doing wrong, rather seeing then that I did get up every 3 hours to feed her. Like I gave her everything I could. And, you know, so it's like, again, where do you put your focus on? And trusting that it's also in her timeline the thing that needed to happen to the highest good of everyone.
Yes. Yes, it's always a fine line. I like a dance, isn't it? To like not say like, okay, whatever happens, because it's like already written in our soul contract, so I can just, chill out, let everything just be however worse it gets. But on the other hand, also not beating ourselves up. And I feel like we often like tend to lean more into one and to another, and finding like this fluidity, this flow between the two. And it's like a constant reflection of what is it that you want to focus on. And like you say, what you do as a mother to a young child, like the amount of energy and love it needs to raise that child, that's so much that sometimes for the rest there's not so much space or nerves or awakened energy. So yes, maybe you could have reacted differently, but also it was necessary. And I think it's necessary, like you say, to experience the uncomfortable side so that we can cherish the other side, and also so that we can kind of step out of the situation a little bit to see it from a different angle, almost like the 0 point reflections that we can do in meditation, where we go like inwards and outwards, like the Big Bang, or the whole universe does this movement all the time. And I think we do that in relationships as well. It's like being really close in first person and then going out to zoom out in the bigger picture, and then really close. And for that, I think we need, or we can utilize emotions that are labeled as lower or uncomfortable or whatever, because they are really beautiful vehicles to bring us to a place where we can look at things from a different standpoint. And then again, we can choose or not choose to come back. And like you said, I think it's a miracle that after only 3 years, now you can sit together and it's an harmonious, wonderful conversation, a wonderful day. That's so much work that has gone in. There is so much leaning into, yes, I want the light. Yes, I want to focus on the good things. And no, I'm not just saying here and demonizing whatever went not ideal, but like really coming back again to say, like, here's the love. That's what I want to focus on.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, the biggest win was actually to feel relaxed in that whole scenario. You know,
Oh my God.
I've been on eggshells and like not certain and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, this is actually really nice. And I feel like in all of that, you actually ultimately transform the relationship you have
Mhm.
towards yourself.
Yeah. Which changed everything else
Yeah.
as well.
And I feel like relationships in general are like in and
Yeah.
out, in and out. Like you come really close, and then you're like, "Wow, fuck! He sees everything of me." And then you
Back
go
out.
out a little bit, and you're like, "Okay, I need to whatever you need to do, integrate, have some space." And then you're like, "Oh, it's actually safe to be seen
Yeah.
in all of it,
Yeah.
and you're still loved in all of it." And then your partner maybe freaks out and moves a little bit, and you're like, it's like a symbiotic growth.
The picture of waves come to me when you tell it that way. I think it's like it's all the ocean. So everything is the togetherness, but then the one wave goes here and the one wave goes there. And like from again the far out zoomed out picture, it looks really beautiful. But imagine being the wave and crashing against the other wave. That's the thing what we do in relationships sometimes. And then that's like the destroying of the present state of being, and then you form again, and it's kind of like looked out from a bit of a zoomed out perspective. It looks really nice, and it's normal, and it's nothing bad, and it's nothing dramatic, and you don't have to go into questioning everything when a wave like this crashes. But maybe it's
Straight on the battlefield.
just a normal rhythm of life, and our humans want to control every little part of it. I can certainly say that for myself.
Yes, they have been there, done that for sure.
That is really beautiful. I had another 1,000 questions in my mind, but I think this feels so complete right now that we focus more on relationships. I know we said we talk about like the how we feel in our body and like what is it actually to who you are, but maybe we take that for another episode. Focus.
Yeah, and I mean, in relationships, like because of embodying, I feel like you learn nowhere better than in relation to other people to embody yourself more and more, because you need to strengthen you're strengthening your core. Otherwise you go through what you said before, the universe just serves you someone else. It's like you can do so much growth on your own. It's easy when you're alone.
That's true.
Then when you come to people, it's like, it's gonna show you.
And you can't run away, especially in a family. You can just say like, "Oh, leave me alone." Yeah, it's true. It's like the amount of mirrors you get in relationships, and therefore the potential for growth is really, really amazing. So it's actually a good thing to have like this constant mirroring back, and also the tension and always the opportunity to say like, okay, there's something that can work. And then of course you have the free will to choose or not to go there, but there's always an opportunity to grow very fast whenever you open your heart enough to go into any sort of relationship. And I think that's just so beautiful.
It is.
I thank you so much for your time and your openness. That's one thing I wanted to share on before, but maybe it's like a wonderful, wonderful coming back full circle. Is this like what you said about how beautiful the Instagram life of people looks like on the outside of like, oh, they're spiritually evolving, everything's like success and wonderful and enlightenment. And then on the back end, there's a lot of wobble still. And so I deeply appreciate whenever, like we just now did, people can share about also the things that are challenging, because that would helps anchor in ourselves a certainty that it's not always a Disney movie, and that's okay. It's just like how life is, and everyone goes through their stuff. But if we only see the good side, if we only talk about all the beautiful things that happen, then it's so hard for other people to overcome their fear of being seen and open up. So I think it's really necessary, and it's also really brave to say like, okay, well, that was an uncomfortable moment in here, because other people can learn so much from that. For me, I've drawn a lot of inspiration and motivation out of people opening up and saying, that just sucked. It was really hard. But now look, I've found my way through it.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you for that openness. That's really, really, really appreciated.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for having me here, and to another episode at another time.
Definitely, we will. I wish you a wonderful week, and
Thank
we
you.
will speak very soon.
I believe so too. Bye, Anna.